Hi, minasan. Watashi wo name wa Blaze desu. I'm kidding. I'm not doing this video in Japanese. In fact, Nihongo ga skoshi wakarimasu. Skoshi. I understand very, very little Japanese. But you don't need to understand Japanese to read this book or to watch this video about this book review. Today's book review will be around this book here, Shinto the Kami Way by Sokyo Ono. This book retails in the US for $12.95, although I'm sure you could probably get it cheaper somewhere else, maybe half-price books. This book was a very interesting read. It does cover a great deal of things. It's got some pretty cool pictures. It does have some photographs, talks about like the shrines, talks about worshiping festivals, some of the spiritual characteristics, political and social characteristics. I can't speak today. It has some really cool pictures with the tori, which are like these gateways or kind of like doorways. It's here on the front cover too. That one is a very common symbol that a lot of people associate with Japan, and it's specifically with Shinto. Now, with like the approach to a shrine, and it actually talks about this in the book, typically there'll be like 3 tori gates, which is kind of like entering into the spiritual realm, which I think is pretty fascinating to have that kind of a concept, to kind of have people do it. They also have tori gates like out in the middle of like cities and stuff, which is also kind of neat, I think. And they talk about that in here as well. They talk about like some of the paper folding and decorating that they do for the shrines themselves and why they do some of those things. Here's like some other examples of the tori gates. And foo dogs, the guardians. No, I'm sorry, the foo dogs, that would be Chinese. But still, half dog, half lion that are like kind of like shrine guardians. There's some really cool pictures with a whole bunch of Shinto practitioners. And there's some layouts for like some of the shrines and stuff. Now, it's just, I find it fascinating. I really like this book. I would actually recommend that you read it and you pick it up, especially if you are interested in just broadening your understanding of different spiritualities, if you have any interest in Japanese culture or spirituality. Now, you'll notice here I'm saying Shinto. It's because phonically the romanicized version of Japanese, I's are pronounced kind of like E's. So it's Shinto. Just like this word here, it's not Kami or Kami or Kami, it's Kami. Because again, the A is always going to be like ah, and the I is E. Kami. So that's just a little interesting tidbit in case you were curious of why I was pronouncing it that way. So I found out a lot of really good things in this book. I felt like it was pretty accurate to some of the other things that I've read or talked about or even saw on like online articles, which again, check those out as well. But for the price, I mean, I found this a great read. I definitely like having it in my collection. It's something I'd probably even read through again, and I would definitely, like I said, I would have you look into it. So, interesting thing about this is that in Japan, there are usually like 2 major spiritualities or religions or faiths, and that's Shinto and Buddhism, specifically Zen Buddhism, because there's Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, Chan Buddhism, large vehicle, small vehicle. I could do a video on Buddhism, and I think I might have. But specifically with Shinto, like they'll do certain rituals and holidays for births and celebrations and good things, and then loss or someone passing away or moving on, they'll do it in the other spiritualities. I just thought that was kind of interesting that they separate some of that. And of course, there's other religions in Japan too. It's not just Shinto and Buddhism. And the interesting thing, like here in America, we kind of tend to identify with a religion, and that kind of defines who we are. But it seems, from what I'm understanding, not only with this book, but other research, it appears like in Japan, and it's not just Japan, it's just like other cultures, a lot of other cultures don't define themselves by their religion. It's not like a defining factor. People can incorporate it and it can be part of them without, oh, you're specifically a Catholic or a Protestant or Jehovah's Witness, and that makes you this way, or this means we can't agree, or that's a reason to have a conflict or an argument because this is the way God intended it. And I don't see that in a lot of the readings or things that I'm researching, at least, specific with things like this. I also found this kind of a neat read because it does cover some. See, I'm going to mix in some of my other knowledge with what's actually in the book. So let's talk specifically about what I find Shinto to be. And as always in any spirituality, you can have your priests, which might have rites or doctrines or ceremonies or rituals that they perform. Then you might have a practitioner who incorporates it into their life as their daily life, but they're not necessarily a priest. And the general concept or understanding seems to be that kami are spirits or spiritual beings. They're these entities. Even the gods are kami. There's like the great kami, which when you translate God as the way that the U.S. or English-speaking or Abrahamic religions typically view God, it's actually something kami. I forget the exact pronunciation, but it means great kami. So it's like, again, they look at them all the same way. Even when a person passes, they become a kami. They become the spirit. There are kami associated with rivers and trees and areas of woods. So the idea is to not piss them off. So they will honor them, and they'll have these shrines. And they have these shrines where they'll put offerings like food or water or incense or just something to honor the kami of that area, especially the nature kami, because they don't want to piss them off, or to honor their ancestors who have passed away. It's apparently there's these kami shrines around different villages, and when somebody passes away, their name is added to the kami shrine, even if they weren't Shinto or practicing Shintoism or the Japanese equivalent. That's how we would say it, and English is Shintoism or someone who practices Shinto. It is interesting that they add them anyway. It's a way of honoring them, even if they so I guess if you were a Christian over there and you passed away, they would still add you to the local kami shrine. From what I was reading, I thought that was kind of interesting. I also thought it was kind of neat again that there's all these spirits. I'm sure you've heard of stuff like The Grudge. There's actually a movie about it, and the idea is when somebody passes away, if you had a good passing and you're honored, you become this kami and you're honored as an ancestor. But if you had a bad passing, then there's this grudge that your spirit holds, and it makes this negativity that needs to be cleansed. So a Shinto priest would actually have to go cleanse out that negativity, and that's where they have hauntings and stuff like that, is based around this concept of the grudge. It's just really fascinating, and it's the idea that everything that we do is reflected in our world, and we want to honor and appreciate that world. And that's why I think Shinto is really a neat concept, and definitely an interesting approach to spirituality, which, again, I would pick this up just for a nice introduction. And I don't remember if it's in here specifically. I'm pretty sure it is, but they talk too about the creation story. And with the Shinto creation story, there was two main deities that they refer to that actually created Japan. And there was a god and a goddess, and I have it written down here because I couldn't memorize those, but Izanami and Izanagi. And the two of them were given this spear. It was like a jeweled spear, Ama no Nuboko. And when it was being forged, they stirred the ocean, and drips dropped off of it and formed the islands of Japan. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. There's a movie with Tom Cruise called The Last Samurai, and they say it was a sword, a katana, but it's actually a yari, a spear that they created the islands with. But it's very similar to what they were trying to go with there. So I just thought that was kind of cool. And then there's this story, and this relates specifically to Shinto, and I believe this is in here. There is these Shinto shrines, or these little houses, and that's where they put their offerings in front of. If you go into any sort of traditional Japanese place, you might see a little shrine up in the corner by the wall or something, or sometimes people have this, and I think I showed a picture of it. Yeah, right here. I passed it. There we go. They'll have this little shrine with these handles that they carry around, and inside of there they actually have a mirror. And that's it. And they're never supposed to look at it. It's supposed to stay inside of this little shrine, and it's supposed to be representing of that kami. Now the reason is Amaterasu. Am I saying that right? Amaterasu. Yeah, Amaterasu is this goddess of the sun. and there's a story about how she was just this beautiful radiant goddess, and I forget what happened, but she got upset and she hid off in a cave, so the world was cast in darkness, and all the other gods, the kami, were wanting her to come back out of the cave, and they didn't know what to do. So one of the goddesses had this plan. She got a mirror, and then all the kami started surrounding around this mirror and talked about how beautiful this kami was, and Amaterasu kind of like, wait a minute, who's more beautiful than I am, and got really upset and started to peek out. So sun was starting to come back into the world, and she wanted to see who this other goddess, this other kami was, that was so beautiful that they would even, talk about her and stop trying to coax her out of the cave. Well, when they showed her, it was a mirror, and she came out like, wait a minute, and then she realized it was herself, and then light was reintroduced to the world. So the mirror is greatly associated with light, understanding with Amaterasu, the great mother. So it was kind of interesting that they put that in the Shinto shrines, and that's sort of like a way of honoring that one story. So I just thought it was kind of neat depiction, and just the ideology and the imagery around that. I just thought that was kind of cool. And like I said, I believe that story may be in here. It's been a little bit since I've read this. I just thought it was a great book to read. And like I said, there's a lot of information in here where they talk about a lot of different stuff. Here is a very large Shinto shrine, which probably has a mirror inside of it being carried by a lot of people. So yeah, interesting read. Again, it retails for $12.95. Definitely has my recommendation to pick it up and add it to your collection. Shinto the Kami Way by Sokyo Ono. And yeah, pick it up. Tell me what your thoughts are. Leave comments below. This video is getting to 12 minutes, so I'll go ahead and cut it here. Thanks for watching. Remember to thumb up, like, and subscribe. More videos coming your way down the road.